The moment Emma picked up her phone and dialed the local radio station, she had no idea she was about to meet the man who would change her life forever. It wasn't the first time she had called in to share her thoughts, but tonight was different. The loneliness in her small apartment seemed heavier, her blindness an almost suffocating reminder of how isolated she truly was. Just as she began to speak, a deep, gentle voice interrupted her. "Sorry to cut in, but I just had to say, you sound like someone who's seen the world more clearly than most people with perfect vision." There was a moment of silence, then she smiled. Who was this man who could break through her sadness with just a few words? His name was Adam, and that night, a connection was made, one that neither of them could have anticipated. Before we dive into this fascinating story, please share a comment with the community, letting us know where you're watching from. From that first call, Emma and Adam's conversations became a nightly ritual. Through long, whispered talks over the phone, they shared dreams, fears, and secrets that they hadn't revealed to anyone else. Emma's world, once confined to the small details her fingers could trace or the echoes her cane tapped out on the sidewalk, began to expand. Adam described sunsets with colors she had only known by name, the way light shimmered on lakes at dawn, and the way people's expressions softened when they spoke of someone they loved. "You make me see things, Adam," Emma murmured one night. "It's like you paint the world for me." And Adam, on the other end of the line, felt a warmth he hadn't known in years. Every night he waited for that phone to ring, his heart beating a little faster. But a secret lingered behind his words, something he couldn't yet bring himself to reveal. Emma wanted to know everything about him. What he looked like, what his days were like, how he spent his time. But Adam was always vague, deflecting her questions with humor or turning the conversation back to her. She learned that he worked long hours, but never said where. He told her he lived alone, yet the quiet clinking of a coffee cup sometimes suggested a more bustling environment. "Why are you so mysterious?" she teased one evening, but there was a tinge of concern beneath her playful tone. What was he hiding? His voice softened, almost wistful. "It's not that I want to be mysterious, Emma. It's complicated, but you'll know everything soon, I promise." That promise hung in the air, leaving Emma with more questions than answers. Still, the way he made her feel, seen, understood, loved, pushed away her doubts. Months went by, and the bond between them deepened. Then came the day Emma's doctor called with unexpected news. A new experimental surgery might be able to restore her sight. The procedure was risky, and there were no guarantees. But for the first time, she had a chance to see again, to finally put a face to the man who had become her world. When she told Adam, he was silent for a long moment. "Emma, are you sure this is what you want?" There was something almost desperate in his voice. What if things aren't what you expect?" "But I want to see you, Adam," she said softly. "Don't you want that too?" He hesitated, then sighed. "More than anything, but if I'm not what you imagined, will you still feel the same?" His words lingered in her mind as she prepared for the surgery, uncertainty twisting in her stomach. Why was he so afraid? What could be so different about him that he feared she might turn away? The day of the surgery arrived. As she lay in the hospital bed, Emma's heart pounded with a mixture of fear and excitement. What if it didn't work? What if she lost everything she had with Adam? But she pushed those thoughts aside. This was her chance to finally live the life she had only ever dreamed of. Hours later, the bandages came off. Slowly, nervously, Emma opened her eyes. Light and color flooded her vision, blurry at first but growing sharper. She looked around the room, taking in the faces of the doctors and nurses, and then there he was. Adam stood at the back of the room, his eyes wide with hope and fear. He was familiar. How could that be? She frowned, confusion spreading across her face. "Adam?" she whispered. He stepped forward, and the room seemed to fall away. She knew him. The way his hair fell across his forehead, the small scar near his eyebrow. Images from a long-buried memory surfaced, a man's voice calming her, strong arms carrying her as she lay broken and bleeding on a cold operating table years ago. Tears welled in Emma's eyes as recognition dawned. "You're the doctor, the one who saved my life when I was a child. Why? Why didn't you tell me?" Adam looked away, his shoulders tense. Because I didn't want you to feel like you owed me something. I wanted you to love me for me, not for what I did for you. Her mind raced, piecing together the fragments of her past. The car accident that took her parents' lives, the long months in the hospital, and the comforting presence of a young doctor who had stayed by her side long after his shifts ended. He had been there, watching over her, even when she thought she was alone. "But why did you come back into my life?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I never really left," he murmured. "I've been watching over you ever since. And when I heard your voice on the radio that night, I just couldn't stay away anymore." Emma's heart ached with a confusing mix of gratitude, anger, and love. "You lied to me, Adam. You let me fall in love with a stranger when all along you were you." "I'm sorry," he whispered, "but I didn't want to take away your choice. I needed you to choose me without knowing the past." She wanted to scream, to lash out at him for keeping something so huge from her, but she couldn't, because the truth was, even knowing everything now, she still loved him, maybe even more. But what did that mean for them? Could she forgive him? Could she ever trust him again? The days that followed were tense. Adam stayed away, giving her space, but Emma felt his absence keenly. She had to confront the truth. He had lied, but his love for her was real, and the way he had fought for her, stayed by her side, risked his own heart. It spoke of a devotion she couldn't ignore. Finally, one evening, she picked up the phone and called him. "I'm angry," she said quietly when he answered, "but I also know that no one has ever loved me the way you do. So, where do we go from here?" The relief in his voice was palpable. "Wherever you want, Emma. I'll follow you anywhere." They met in a park, the place where she had always imagined meeting him for the first time. As she looked at him, truly seeing him for the first time, she realized that he was everything she had ever hoped for and more. "Let's start over," she said, holding out her hand. "Hello, I'm Emma. It's nice to finally see you." Adam laughed, a sound full of hope and love. "Hello, Emma, I'm Adam, and I've been waiting my whole life for this moment." With her sight now restored and their relationship on shaky ground, Emma tried to rebuild her life. She moved back to her old apartment, started painting again, and found solace in the simple joys of seeing the world anew. But every time she picked up her phone, she hesitated, wondering if she should call Adam. The man she had fallen in love with was still there, but the layers of hidden truths made it hard to trust him completely. Then, one afternoon, while rummaging through some old boxes, she found a small, leather-bound notebook she had kept years ago, back when she was first recovering in the hospital. Flipping through the faded pages, she froze at a familiar name, Dr. Adam Walker. Her fingers trembled as she read her own childish handwriting. "I don't know why Dr. Walker stays after his shift, but when he talks to me, I don't feel so scared anymore. I hope one day I can thank him." Tears blurred her vision. Even back then, in the darkest moments of her life, he had been her light. The anger she had been holding on to melted away, replaced by a yearning she couldn't ignore. She had to see him, to know everything once and for all. Emma showed up at Adam's doorstep, unannounced, clutching the notebook in her hand. He opened the door, surprise flashing across his face, followed by a guarded hope. "Emma?" She didn't wait for him to speak. "Why didn't you ever tell me who you really were? Why didn't you tell me then?" She held up the notebook, her voice breaking. "You were the one who kept me alive, kept me believing in something good. Why would you hide that?" Adam took a step back, his gaze shifting from the notebook to her tear-filled eyes. "Because I was scared, Emma. Scared that if I told you, you'd feel trapped, that you'd feel obligated to care for me in return. I didn't want your love to be out of gratitude. I wanted it to be real." His confession cut through her defenses, but she still struggled to reconcile the man she loved with the one who had kept so much from her. "And what about when we met again? Why keep pretending? I would have remembered if you had just told me." Adam's eyes darkened with pain. "By the time I realized who you were, we were already in too deep. I didn't know how to tell you without losing you, so I took the coward's way out. I'm so sorry, Emma." For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Emma stepped forward, placing her hand gently on his chest. "All this time, you were my hero, and I didn't even know it." Just as Emma felt the weight of his words settle between them, a new twist emerged that threatened to tear them apart again. The doorbell rang, startling them both. Adam opened it, and standing there was a woman, tall, elegant, and strikingly beautiful. She looked at Adam, then at Emma, with a gaze full of quiet determination. "Dr. Daft Walker," she said calmly, "we need to talk. It's about the lawsuit." Emma's stomach dropped. "Lawsuit?" she whispered, staring at Adam in shock. The woman nodded, her face softening with sympathy. "I'm Dana Harrison, his lawyer. Dr. Walker's hospital is suing him for breaking patient confidentiality. He's been suspended, all because of you." "Because of me?" Emma felt like the ground had been pulled out from under her. Adam's face tightened. "It's not your fault, Emma. They found out I was still in contact with you all these years. He paused, swallowing hard. That I crossed professional boundaries by staying involved in your life." "But you saved me," she protested. "You were just helping." Dana shook her head sadly. "The hospital sees it differently, and if we lose this case, Adam could lose his medical license forever." The news hit Emma like a punch to the chest. Adam's entire career, his life's work, was on the line because of what he had done for her. All those years of dedication and sacrifice, the quiet, selfless love he had shown her, it could all be destroyed. And it was her choice now, whether to step away and let him fight this battle alone, or to stand beside him and risk dragging him down even further. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked again, her voice a whisper. "Because you've been through enough," Adam said quietly. "I didn't want you to feel responsible. I didn't want you to feel like you owed me anything." But she did owe him, not because of guilt, but because of the love she felt growing stronger every second. She couldn't turn her back on him. Not now. With a deep breath, she turned to Dana. "What do we need to do to fight this?" Adam's eyes widened. "Emma, no, you don't have to." "I want to," she interrupted, her voice steady. "We're in this together, Adam. No more lies, no more secrets. We fight this together." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal meetings, strategy sessions, and painful confrontations. The hospital's lawyers painted Adam as an obsessive, unethical doctor who had taken advantage of a vulnerable patient. Emma, meanwhile, was portrayed as the unwitting victim of his misplaced affection. But Emma stood her ground, taking the stand in his defense. She spoke about the accident, about how Adam had been the only constant in her world when everything else had fallen apart. She described the nights she cried herself to sleep, the fear of living in darkness, and the way his voice had been her lifeline. "Adam Walker didn't ruin my life," she said firmly, her voice ringing through the courtroom. "He saved it, again and again, and if the hospital can't see that, then they're the ones who've lost their way." There was a murmur in the room, a ripple of empathy that seemed to shift the atmosphere. Emma glanced at Adam, saw the gratitude and love shining in his eyes, and knew that no matter what happened next, they had already won. The jury deliberated for hours, but when they returned, the verdict was unanimous: not guilty. Adam was cleared of all charges, and his medical license was reinstated. The hospital, shamed by the public outcry after Emma's testimony, offered a formal apology. Adam turned to Emma, his hands shaking as he cupped her face. "You did it," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "No," she said softly, smiling through her tears. "We did it."
Hey there, quick message. Grab a paper, write down HeroKind Stories, our channel name. Come back soon, we've got incredible stories you won't want to miss.
After the trial, Adam's life slowly returned to normal, at least as normal as it could be after nearly losing everything. He resumed his work at the hospital, though now on different terms, with the administration keeping a closer eye on his activities. But despite the tension, Adam felt lighter than he had in years. He no longer had to hide his love for Emma, no longer had to live with the fear of being discovered. For Emma, life was also shifting. With her sight restored, she was finally able to experience all the things she had dreamed about for so long. She visited art galleries, took long walks through the city, and even started painting again. But the greatest joy of all was seeing Adam every day, not just with her eyes, but with her heart. Still, there were scars left to heal. Emma's newfound independence sometimes clashed with Adam's instinct to protect her, and there were moments of tension when she felt smothered by his concern. But instead of letting these issues drive them apart, they tackled them head-on, determined to build a relationship that was rooted in honesty and equality. One evening, as they sat on the balcony of her apartment, watching the sun dip below the horizon, Emma turned to Adam and took his hand. "I've been thinking," she began slowly. "Maybe it's time for us to take the next step." He raised an eyebrow, a teasing smile playing on his lips. "What step is that?" "Living together," she said simply. "We've been through so much, Adam. I don't want to waste any more time." Adam's eyes widened, surprise giving way to joy. "Are you sure?" "More than anything," she whispered, leaning closer. "I want to start our life together." Within weeks, they found a small house on the outskirts of town, a place with a garden for Emma to sit and paint, and enough space for Adam to finally feel like he was building something new. Moving in was chaotic, full of boxes, misplaced items, and laughter as they tried to navigate the clutter. But the house quickly became a home, filled with the warmth of shared moments and the promise of a future free from secrets. One afternoon, as Emma unpacked the last of her belongings, she stumbled across the old notebook again. She flipped through it, smiling at the childish scrawls that chronicled her early days with Adam. Then, on impulse, she picked up a pen and began to write. "Dear Dr. Walker, you were my light when I was lost. Thank you for never giving up on me, even when I didn't know you were there. I love you more than words can say. Yours, always, Emma." She left the notebook on his desk, a reminder of how far they had come. When Adam found it later that evening, he read the note with tears in his eyes. He turned to Emma, his gaze soft. "I never deserved you," he murmured. "Yes, you did," she replied, wrapping her arms around him. "You always have." Months passed, and Emma's life blossomed in ways she had never imagined. Her paintings, inspired by the colors and scenes she had long yearned to see, began attracting attention. One day, a small local gallery approached her, offering to host an exhibition of her work. It was a dream she hadn't even dared to dream, and when she told Adam, his eyes lit up with pride. "You see," he said, pulling her close, "I always knew you were meant for something extraordinary." The night of the exhibition, Emma stood before a crowd of strangers, her heart racing as they admired her art. Each painting was a piece of her soul, a glimpse into the journey she had taken from darkness to light, from fear to love. And standing beside her, his hand steadying hers, was the man who had been with her every step of the way. As the guests filtered out, Emma turned to Adam, her eyes shining. "We did it," she whispered. "Together." "Together," he agreed, smiling softly. Then he leaned down and kissed her gently. "Now, what's next?" Emma laughed, her heart light. "Anything, everything, as long as we're together." The following year, on the anniversary of the surgery that changed her life, Emma and Adam visited the hospital where it had all begun. They stood outside the building, the weight of all that had happened pressing down on them. It was here that Emma had found her sight, and here that Adam had nearly lost his future. But now, standing side by side, they knew that the past no longer held power over them. "This place, it's where everything started," Emma said quietly, "but it's not where it ends." Adam squeezed her hand. "No, it's just a chapter, and we have so many more to write." With one last look at the hospital, they turned and walked away, leaving behind the ghosts of what might have been. Ahead of them stretched a road full of possibilities, one they would walk together, no matter what challenges lay ahead. Thank you so much for watching this story of love, resilience, and redemption. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and share it with someone who might need a little hope and inspiration today. And don't forget to check out the next video on the screen.